Hi, my name is Johnny Terry, and I'm a candidate for CCA president. And I'm going to speak to you today. I'm not going to read. I only have a couple things to read, so I know my eyes are going to do this thing. Brad, you made fun of me at this last board meeting. You can laugh at this as much as you want. Everyone keeps telling me be who you are. Well, you know what? I think this is who I am. So I will do my best, but I'm going to speak to you and not read. But first, the views expressed in this short video are solely those of the candidate and do not necessarily reflect the views of CCA, CTA, or NEA, and no chapter dues were used either directly or indirectly to fund this campaign. So what I want to talk to you about today is the work I've been doing for the past 20 years at Sierra College. And that is the LGBT work. If you've seen any of the videos that are on my Facebook page, you see a lot of people are paying tribute to me and giving testimonies about what it's been like to work with me on the LGBT issues. And I have to admit, it's been stressful, and it's taken a lot of persistence and a lot of patience to achieve the goals that I had for LGBT studies here at Sierra. In fact, I have created the third LGBT studies department in the state, written this one of two LGBT studies degrees in the state. And so that you know, our students graduate from the LGBT studies department, and 80% of the employees at the Sacramento LGBT Community Center are our graduates. So they wrote a letter to our college, and we're telling us how much they appreciate the degree and program. And I believe we have the first academic senate standing committee of any community college that is focused on the success and retention of LGBTQIA students and staff. We've had a Pride Center here at Sierra College for the past 10 years, and that's really important. I will tell you that for the first 6 years that we had a Pride Center, it was completely unresourced, funded solely on the basis of donations. And we had about 15 students who were regularly cramming into a room that comfortably held 5 while they were working on tutoring chemistry and tutoring mathematics on a little whiteboard that was in the room. My office was right next door to that center. Many of you know that your first introduction to me at the statewide level was when I was at a CCA conference, and Senator Marty Block was there, and he was talking about how he had authored the legislation requiring the chancellor's office to collect LGBT data. And I stood up at that conference and said, I appreciate so much the legislation, but pointed out that the chancellor's office was not releasing that data to us, and that it was very important that we get the data. I want to point out that in November 2017, at UC Riverside hosted the first LGBT plus community college summit. It was the first of its kind anywhere. And I took some people from Sierra College, and we were presenting there. And while we were in the morning general session, I was very humbled to hear Dolores Davison from the stage. She was the secretary of the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges at the time, and she was also the Equity, Diversity, and Action Committee chair for the statewide Academic Senate as well. And this is a direct quote. Here's the other thing I want to read. She said, waking me up early in the morning, she said, one of the absolute heroes of this particular movement in terms of curriculum development is here. And if you have an opportunity to see him speak this afternoon, Johnny Terry from Sierra College. I have to say that most of what I do as the Equity, Diversity, and Action Committee chair this year centers around the what would Jay do? What would Johnny do? That's why my WWJD bracelet is on, because this year I'm fortunate enough, really, I seriously ask, what would Johnny do about this? Would Johnny agree to this? That was such a humbling thing to hear her say. And it was also gratifying because most of the attention for the LGBT work that we've gotten for the work we've done here at Sierra College has been off campus rather than on. And for the past 10 years, I've been fighting for the release of that data. And I have to say that we finally got the data from our research department about a week and a half ago. And I had convinced myself somehow while I was teaching my LGBT studies classes that because we're like submarines, we can go underground, we're not always being visibly LGBT, that somehow it was okay, that we were able to blend in, that wasn't an issue. But the data showed disproportionate impact across the board. And especially our LGBT students are earning their degrees and certificates at 54% of the general population. So it was an emotional thing for me to see the data finally. And I think that now we're going to start working on putting resources toward that data. By the way, my committee, the Spectrum Committee, we have raised over $50,000 donations because we knew right away that no one was going to fund us. We needed to raise all of our own money. I want to tell you too that one of the reasons why I entered this race late is that I was tapped along with two of my colleagues to create three-unit courses on equity. And I was very excited to do that. And clearly I was selected because I'm bringing the LGBT information with me. But I was really excited to take this because I knew that I would be coming out of the creation of this curriculum a completely different person than when I went in. And one of the first books that we looked at that we're going to require for the first class is this one. It's by Zaretta Hammond, and it's called Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. And I had no clue what was going to be in this book. And if you would have asked me 3 years ago, are you a good student, a good professor, I would have told you I'm a damn good professor. After working through that book and being taken back to some of my days in high school and middle school, I have to say that the answer to the question, are you a good professor, would really have to be, I've been a damn good professor for some of my students. And in some of the cases, I've been negligent. And looking at the relationship between culturally responsive teaching and brain development, I went back to something that happened in my senior year of high school. In my senior year of high school, somehow I was accidentally put into a developmental English class. And so that you know the historical context, Kentucky had refused to desegregate its schools. And when I was going into 6th grade, the federal government stepped in and said, you will desegregate those schools or we'll do it for you. So they started what in my family was called forced busing, which tells you my family's perspective on it. So in my senior year in high school, I went into this developmental English class. And as soon as I walked in the room, there was a white teacher and an all-black student body in the room. The teacher said, oh, wait, you're in the wrong class. And she said, just sit down and just go along with us for the next week or so until we can get you into the advanced class. When I went into the advanced class, we were doing things like reading As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner, reading The Old Man and the Sea, and doing literary analysis. But in this room that I was in for 3 weeks, all we did was seek and finds. That was it for 3 solid weeks. Every day the teacher would give us a little sheet of paper and it had letters laid out and we would look for word patterns. And so when I read Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain and what I know about the way that brain develops and pruning, by the time we're 5 years old, all the neuronal pathways have been built in our brains. And what you do at that point becomes embedded and enriched. And what you don't use becomes pruned and is chopped off. That's why it's hard for me to work on languages, because I grew up in Kentucky that was landlocked with regards to language. And at the same time, I never played sports. And my dad didn't throw a ball with me. We didn't do that. So I'm very awkward when it comes to basketball and things like that. So we know that my academic background that I had created a different brain structure than the background of the students who were graduating from that class. And this book has really, I've got to say, has changed the type of teacher that I hope to be in my career. And I need to do better, and I can do better. I think the equity work is tremendously important, and I think faculty should be compensated for undergoing this sort of self-reflection and this sort of work.